we're coming from a perspective of how do we create a safer community. Sometimes a safer community is having someone in jail. Sometimes a safer community is diverting someone so that they can go out and fulfill their responsibilities, being able to support themselves, being able to support their responsibility of their families if they have a family. That's the outcome we want, because ultimately it's a community where people are being responsible, they're being held accountable, and they're doing the things they're supposed to do to create a safer community.
This is season 2, episode 4 of the Smart Justice Podcast, The Law and the Lawyers.
Crime and punishment are hot topics. Are there solutions different than what we're hearing about at a national level?
They're trying to stop that cycle so that we don't see their children, they don't see them in juvenile court, we don't see them headed to circuit court.
We give someone a traffic ticket and they're scared, they can't pay that ticket, and what do? They don't show up for court. They think it's going to go away. Well, it doesn't go away.
It's not about the court bringing in that money, it's about helping that person avoid this kind of problem in the future.
There is a different way to approach justice that has better return on investment.
The bad people need to be in jail and stay there. Folks that are suffering from just social ills, they don't need to be here.
That seems to strengthen both law enforcement and courts and tie that together with community resources.
I think that's what makes it worthwhile, that little bit of extra time you spend working on it. If you can't do a little mercy when you're here, then it's not worth being here.
And then track the impact to communities and better outcomes. And we're calling this approach Smart Justice.
Smart Justice is a work of Restore Hope and partner organizations. Restore Hope is a software and services organization that helps communities achieve better outcomes for justice and child welfare efforts. Smart Justice is focused on optimizing the system by improving the relationships among its parts.
We're going upstream this season of Smart Justice, discussing how to intersect with people, sinking into the justice system, and helping them find a way out through community diversion and alternative sentencing in the district court. But how does that approach sit with police and attorneys dealing with these cases? Paul Chapman spoke with members of law enforcement and prosecutors about how this approach impacts public safety.
Welcome to this edition of Smart Justice. Today we're going to talk about the importance of maintaining public safety as we engage in community diversion. We're here today with the Pulaski County Sheriff, Sheriff Eric Higgins, to talk about the importance of the law and the attorney's involvement in community diversion. Hey, welcome, Sheriff. Thanks so much for sitting down with us to talk.
I appreciate you.
So, Sheriff, as we're talking about diverting folks, moving upstream into district courts to divert individuals that are likely to become further entangled with the law at felony levels, maybe the children entering into foster care. The thing that we have to always think about is public safety. And so I'd just like to start with, how long have you been in law enforcement, and then how long have you been sheriff?
So I've been in law enforcement, I guess about 34 years, or maybe a little bit longer than that. Been sheriff since 2019. Ready to start my second term as Pulaski County Sheriff. My original career was at Little Rock Police Department. I spent 30 years there, retired as assistant chief, spent 10 years as assistant chief there.
Can we just start with talking about your kind of vision or philosophy around policing?
As law enforcement, we are to engage the community, try to ensure to prevent crime. Sometimes we'll make a mistake in that in law enforcement, we think all we're supposed to do is make arrests. And if if the focus is making arrests, then we are missing the opportunity to prevent crime. And so we're going to make arrests. We want to get dangerous people off the street. We want to do those things, and we're required to do those things. But in addition to that, I think is more important is also trying to prevent crime. How can we engage in the community to prevent a person from getting involved in criminal activity? How can we partner with organizations to try to address the issues in the community that create an unsafe environment? How do we engage with people in the community to divert them, to have them see other opportunities? When we look at crime, sometimes we make a mistake and we look at crime as this obscure blob that's out there and we need to do something about this crime. Well, crime is committed by an individual. It's individual choices that people make. It's individual circumstances that lead people down a road that maybe they can avoid if they had other opportunities or were educated about certain resources available to them. And so if we're going to deal with crime, we have to bring it down to a personal level, looking at individuals to keep them out of the criminal justice system, or if they've entered into it, for whether it's through a ticket or shoplifting or some misdemeanor offense, what's going on? How can we divert them from continuing on that road? Because if you've been in law enforcement for a while, you end up seeing some of the same people. You end up seeing charges, minor charges on the individual building to more serious charges. Sometimes people get trapped. Now, recognize that you have dangerous people out there, and we have to address those individuals who are a danger to society.
So, Sheriff, do you see a progression? 30 years plus in law enforcement. Do you think that there's actually a progression of severity of crime? Do folks kind of start down a path and it gets worse?
There's two levels. It could get worse, more serious charges, or just consistently the same charges. Consistently, maybe you have the shoplifting charges, or you have the possession charges, you have the failure to appear charges, and you end up going to court on these minor things that you're not going to spend 15 years in prison on, but you have these minor charges, and then you don't pay your fine, and there's a warrant for your arrest, and then you go to court on that. Maybe you do some time in the county jail on that, or a community service, and then you have a similar incident, and it's this continual cycle of something minor, and you're staying stuck in that cycle, whether it's you're stuck because you're paying your fines and you can never get ahead because you're paying your fines, or you get your car towed for this traffic offense and you don't have the money to get the car out, and because you can't get the car out and you can't go to work, you end up losing your job, and then you can't pay your fine and you're scrambling trying to regroup, set your foundation again. So you have, I think, a significant number of people that are involved in that cycle, and then you have those who get involved in more serious offenses, and it could be because of, you lose hope. I'm stuck in the system, and so I need to try something else to keep out of the system, or I can't get a job because of this is what's on my record, and therefore I'm forced, or I think I'm forced into the avenue of more and more serious criminal activity or consistent criminal activity.
To gain additional perspective, Paul spoke to other members of law enforcement, including Phillip Miller, a sheriff in Searcy County, where community diversion methods are implemented in the district court.
I've been asked that before. Well, are you soft on crime because you support these things? No. Bad people need to be in jail where bad people belong. People that have never learned any different, that have never seen any different, that want to do good, they don't need to be in my jail. People that are really suffering with mental health issues, that this is a convenient place for them to get dropped, they don't need to be in my jail. They need the resources like what's being provided. And that's what I see different. It's not, I'm soft on crime. It's not, no. The bad people need to be in jail and stay there. It really shocks me to see people that are charged and convicted of sex crimes, sex assaults, child porn, that get probation. Probation means you go home, you do what you want, you go see your probation officer once a month, and you're good. I have a hard time with that. That's what I'm talking about. The sex crimes, the rapes, the assaults. That's violence against humanity. Or you got caught with with 2 grams of methamphetamine, like 25% of the population walking around out here. So, you know, you're gonna go to jail for that. Why? Let's find out first time why. How can we divert that somewhere else? Then go from there. But some of the more violent crimes that folks are out there committing, and then they're either getting probation or they're spending a very small amount of their sentence in prison, and then they're back out. And when we talk about recidivism, most of the folks that are, recidivism is just that. The same ones that just got let out are the same ones at the front door that have committed a new violent crime that are waiting to go back. Those are the folks that need to stay in prison. But folks that are suffering from things like this, from just social ills that they've never seen a different way, they don't need to be here.
Van Buren Police Chief Jamie Hammond.
Chief, can you just talk to us a little bit about the programs that you're running here in the Van Buren Police Department?
We do, in cooperation with our district court, we have drug court. We have a drug court with them. We also have a DWI court. Just started a mental health court, and then also a veterans court. And then our officers know about those just through a dialogue that we have with them, and they let people know, defendants or I guess arrestees, know that these options are available for them. There's times that we can use our discretion, and maybe somebody needs to be arrested, maybe they don't. A lot of times, as we all know, there's people that need to be arrested. People need to be in jail. That's why we have jails. But many times that's not the case, and our officers know that if they are involved in an incident where maybe someone needs to be arrested, but we can arrest them maybe at a later date, maybe with a warrant if we need be. But in the meantime, defer them to one of these alternative courts or programs that we have to keep them from even being arrested. That's one of the things that we use, that they do have to be arrested, taken to jail. We're able to follow up with that person, with their attorney, to make sure that they know that those options are available to them and that this isn't the end of the world for them. You mentioned the traffic ticket example. We give someone a traffic ticket and they're scared, they can't pay that ticket, and what do? They don't show up for court. They think it's going to go away. Well, it doesn't go away. Or maybe they forget, whatever the case may be. Our officers on their tickets, on these citations, it's a rule, it's a policy that we have, that you have to put that person's phone number on the ticket so that we can follow up with them to say, hey, don't forget, Mr. Chapman, you have a court date on Friday. Show up. You're not going to be thrown in jail for speeding. The judge is not going to make you write a check before you leave. We kind of explain to them, because it's scary. It's scary to go to court or to get a ticket or all those things. So we help ease their minds, and that's just a very, very small example. But that's things like that is what we want to do to help prevent that from happening. Because if they don't go to court, you know what happens? They get a warrant. Next thing you know, they go to jail. They sit in jail for 30 days maybe before they get able to see the judge, because they don't take lightly to failure to appear warrants. And then they're going to go to court. Well, not 30 days, as you know, they're going to lose their job. Things happen to them, and just over a traffic ticket. So if we can help them help themselves with that ticket, then we're all ahead.
How would you want community diversion to be? What would be the right way to be able to preserve kind of public safety, but also provide folks with
I think there's a good amount of trust that you have to have with the community. For example, if someone is responsible for a crime and the person, say the victim of that crime, sees that person out on the streets, not in jail or in prison, they want to know why. And when we tell them about diversion courts or alternative sentencing that we do, they have to be able to trust us when we tell them, hey, this is the best thing. I promise you this is better for that defendant and it's better for our community. And I think so it starts with a trust. And as long as they trust us to know that that's the best decision, then I think that's where we start that conversation with.
Sheriff Higgins.
Oftentimes in law enforcement, we're involved, we make the arrest. We have probable cause to make the arrest. It's up to the courts to decide, or the jury to decide whether conviction takes place. The prosecutor decides whether or not they're going to move forward, whether the charge is going to be reduced. They're involved in that aspect of it. Most of you in law enforcement, we want the community to be safer. And I think it helps us to be educated when we know that this person's been arrested, he's gone to jail, or she's gone to jail. We know that part of it, but then we're kind of in the dark on the rest of it. We can look the person up and see that they went to prison, or we go to court and they've spent 15 years in prison, whatever. We know that aspect of it. To help us keep from thinking it's a prevention program over here, it's a diversion program, and it's law enforcement trying to keep people safe. If we're involved in that, and we're educated about the successes of it, and how it moves forward, then we get a little bit more buy-in. Because we want the community to be safe. It's not that some people may think all law enforcement will put everybody in jail and that everybody's the enemy. That's not the way that's not the way good law enforcement officers view the community. It's about safety. And whether somebody spends 15 years in jail and never committed another crime, or they're diverted and don't commit a crime. Well, we want to know we have a safer community. Our system is working. Our system is evaluating. It's not just glad handing everybody, and it's not hitting everybody, heavy, because we all know not everybody needs to go to prison for the rest of their life. Some do, but not everybody. And so if we can get some buy-in, and that's what I see, a system that's working to educate the prosecutors involved, the public defenders are involved, and I think public defenders would appreciate the assistance. They're trying to serve their client, or I lean on public defenders because most people you're talking about are going to be poor, and they're not going to have the resources to hire an attorney and pay those fines and do all that. So they're going to be dependent on the public defender's office, and we know that office they have a large caseload. And they're trying to process a lot of people, and most people, don't go to trial. That most people that have charges against them settle that between their attorney and the prosecutor. And so there's a lot of decisions being made in district court. And I think if the public defender knew they had an advocate that's going to be able to look at a situation a little bit more deeper than they can to assist in their assessment. And if it's done right, then you have the buy-in of the prosecutor that knows that this individual is not working for the defendant while they're trying to assist the defendant. They're trying to assess what's best for our community.
Which brings us to another perspective, the prosecutors. How do those prosecutors working in courts with diversion programs view the process?
Well, my name's Colton Pace. I'm a deputy prosecuting attorney. I've been in the position for about 4.5 years now. One of my responsibilities, and what's particular about this institute and my involvement today, is that I'm involved with the DWI court, one of the alternative sentencing courts in Sebastian County, and I serve as the prosecutor in that position. One of my primary responsibilities is to filter folks in that have criminal charges, determine whether they're going to be suitable for the court, looking at determining whether they're going to be able to get through that program, whether they have certain charges that are going to disqualify from the program. There are a few disqualifying factors. Obviously, violent criminals, for the most part, we don't want to let into those courts. Anything of a sexual nature, we're not in support of, generally from my office. Those are just kind of some of the preliminary things. If you're interested in the program, the biggest benefit is that you don't have to do jail time. With most DWI ones, you only have 1 day of jail, so a lot of folks don't like to go through that process if they can do their 1 day of jail and not have to do the court. But if they feel like they have an issue with alcohol dependency or some sort of drug dependency, we can assist and send them through that court, even if it is just a DWI one. The diversion program offers sobriety and the option not to have to do jail. So many folks that get DWIs are professionals or have a family. They don't want to be taken away from that job or that family. They could potentially lose their job. In Sebastian County, and I know most of the courts throughout the state, for your second DWI, it's often 14 days in jail. For For your third, it's 90 days in jail. That's devastating to a lot of folks in their jobs. And so this offers an opportunity to get sober, to enter into counseling. We offer multiple different counseling agencies they can go to. We drug test them, we test them for alcohol, give them that, hold them accountable through that program and give them the option to do that program. I think sobriety is the biggest carrot out of this program. I think a lot of folks don't realize that they have a problem. We have so many folks that come in just to avoid jail time, and at the end of the program they realize they did have a real substance abuse issue. And that's very important to see. It's a great thing to see folks come around and recover by the end of it.
I would say 70 to 80% of the people who come through the district court system are addicted to marijuana, meth, alcohol, and they need help, and their families need help to survive.
Donald Raney, prosecutor in White County with an organization 100 Families, work in conjunction with the district court to connect people with resources like addiction treatment.
The district court system now, we have 14 departments of district court in White County, and I am the prosecuting attorney in 7 of them.
And how long have you been prosecuting attorney in district court?
Since 2013, when the new district court system went into effect. Before Arkansas went to the district court system, which all counties have district courts, and you have various departments within that district court system, we had a split system. It was called city court and municipal court. The larger cities, the county seats, had a municipal court. Most of the smaller towns had a city court, and I was a city court judge for 34 and a half years. Had absolutely no support, nothing like this. And we kept seeing the same people over and over again, whether it was speeding, it didn't matter. It was tied to an addiction, and we didn't have anything. And I think now, man, what if I'd been able to direct some of those people as a city court judge to these programs? May have made a big effect.
30 years as a judge. What tools? I mean, you have fines and jail, right?
That's all we had. And we didn't have any probation department. And I should have said this, the district courts I'm working in, nearly all of them have a probation department. And that probation officer is willing to work with 100 families tandemly to do some classes, do some training, do some treatment and everything. I didn't have a probation department. I had a police officer or two and me.
Yeah, if someone's not paying their fines, giving them more fines doesn't necessarily change the behavior, does it?
No, it doesn't. You got to have something other than that to change someone's behavior. And again, that's why I'm tickled that the 100 Families has a person in court that we can, before that person gets out of court, because sometimes they just come to court and tell you anything they want to get out the door. But they can talk with someone, and that caseworker may be able to catch them and get their attention. Because I see people getting help now that didn't have that chance. Now, with addiction to something like meth or alcohol, you've got to have a place to go. You've got to stay for a while. You've got to be willing to commit, and that takes some facilities and treatment options and everything. But it also takes some help for that defendant's families to exist. And what I'm seeing is that they do go into these programs. They do get, help. It's not 100%, but even if we save one, it's worth the effort.
Colton Pace.
You're a prosecutor. I think when most people watch lawyer shows or whatever, they think of the prosecutor as the one out to get the person, right? Make sure justice is served. So what is it about alternative sentencing options that is attractive to you as a prosecutor?
90% of my job is what you described. So this is an interesting spin on me. And I was not the first person to buy into this whatsoever. but I do genuinely enjoy getting an opportunity to help folks. I feel like this is a different way to hold them accountable. It doesn't waste as many resources in incarcerating them or housing them, and it gives them the opportunity to better themselves and better their community ultimately. And it's very rewarding to see those graduates at the end of the day, return to their families, do their jobs, and be productive members of society. This is a different way of doing it.
So what do you think about the idea of actually further providing more resource to district court judges? The idea is that we can find individuals that are getting in trouble in misdemeanor court and try to help them address their issues so that they don't continue on the road, which is likely to lead to serious trouble.
Right. I think it's absolutely needed. I think if the courts had the resources, but it takes time. If you had the resources where someone's coming before the judge to spend a little time with them and do a little background information on them to see what the real issues are and try to assist them with those issues. Because a lot of times you go to court, even if you're given a fine and you don't have a way of paying the fine, or as you mentioned, if my driver's license is suspended, and how do I get to work? But I have this fine I've got to pay, and if I don't pay my fine, I've got to failure to appear, and the judge will give me another chance, most likely, and so I've gone through the system. I maybe spend a night in jail or longer, and then the judge says, okay, I'm gonna put you on probation again. You got to pay this fine, and maybe double what it was originally. Well, you get out, you still don't have your driver's license. How do you pay your fine? And so you get into this cycle. So if you have the resources to have that conversation, to identify their background and their needs, and try to make those connections, maybe it involves also looking at that fine. Can the fine be suspended? Can the fine after a period of time, if it's giving them something to do, whether it's going to a program or financial literacy, something else, can we remove that fine? A lot of times what the courts will do, at least around here, will give community service. And they've got to go somewhere and work. Well, if they're going to go somewhere and work, that means they're not working. And so, here at the county jail, here at Pulaski County, we have a lot of people that don't show up for their community service. I think not because they don't want to do community service, but community service is not going to, pay your light bill. And so you have a choice you have to make. Do I work so I can keep my lights on, have food on the table, or do I do community service to help pay off a fine that it's not going to help meet my tangible needs at the moment?
Sheriff Phillip Miller.
I think moving upstream, moving into the court system, where we can find people before they end up in jail, and say, hey, okay, let's work on this problem now so that you don't get behind on your fines. You don't violate your probation and then end up in jail and things just spiral downhill. And a lot of it is just, White County is a big county, but we're a very rural county in many ways. And so much of what we see is just generational. People have 24 years, I'm dealing with grandkids of people that I dealt with when I started my career for the same things, because there's no knowledge or no way to break that cycle. And having this program here, having it embedded in the district court system to help break that cycle before they ever end up in jail, that would be really beneficial to what we've got going on. It frees our jails up, and the cost to the citizen is less of an impact. We're not having to use your tax dollars to incarcerate these people that have, they've just never seen a different way. So now we're spending your tax dollars to incarcerate them, and they're not learning a different way in jail either. They get trapped in that cycle that some of them will stay in for the rest of their life, unfortunately. But I think if we embed this in a district court setting to where they can get the help immediately, that's a much better use of our tax dollars. 100 families come in, and honestly, I think we really underestimated just the sheer volume of people that needed the kind of help that 100 families is providing. And so they came in, and the folks that are being able to be serviced by 100 families is helping to make a difference. We see those same folks that were coming to jail several times for misdemeanor offenses through no fault sometimes of their own, other than just a system that's broken, that have now found the help that they really needed through 100 families to make that change in their life and to become successful at something in their life, and which leads to being successful at not coming back through the criminal justice program. Probably 80% of the folks that are in our jail, felony or misdemeanor, it deals with drugs. It deals with generational drug use, generational abuse. And a lot of times that drug abuse is to cope with a mental health issue. And we didn't have a good mechanism in place to try to help deal with that. You know, from a law enforcement standpoint, our capability for mental health assistance is if somebody's suicidal or homicidal, well, we can get them some help then. Otherwise, there's not much help out there. Once again, 100 families came in, and there was a resource that brought things together, that brought the ability to, hey, this is how we contact your probation officer. Let's get things lined out there. Then this is how we contact workforce services to help you find a job. And this is how we contact a place to help you find a place to live. And so they started building their life back and getting a hold of that and becoming successful. And once again, that means they're successfully out of the cycle of criminal justice.
Paul spoke with Sheriff Higgins about going even further upstream than district court.
I know while you were at the police department, you were engaging in some preventative kind of work. Can we talk about that just a little?
Yeah, well, we got involved when I was at Little Rock Police Department is trying to engage in our kids, involved in our youth, because you see the cycle. You see the kids growing up and making poor decisions and getting involved in criminal activity and staying in those activities. Some people may think it's just kids making a choice, just bad kids. But a lot of times it's kids looking at their circumstances at home and making choices. They think that this is what I have to do. I have to be involved in a gang because the gangs are in my community and I need to feel safe, and therefore I'm going to get involved in gang activity. I'll get involved in selling drugs or what have you because I want to help mom and grandma keep the lights on. I need to have food in the house. So, the kids get involved. They're trying to meet some tangible needs that they have, that we all have. You want to feel safe. You want to have housing. You want to have food. And so kids get involved in those activities. So what we did was engage with a program called the OK program, where we work with our youth. We assign officers to actually be in the school, working with the kids, individual kids. It wasn't a school resource program. Is a program engaging the kids, and they did home visits. They wanted to know what the environment the kids were in. If the kids got in trouble, they stayed engaged with the kids, monitoring their grades and encouraging them, giving them opportunities, taking them on college road trips, things like that. Let them see some things beyond maybe what they were seeing in their neighborhood.
How'd that work?
It was great. A lot of kids went to college. They're successful. As a matter of fact, I've got 2 kids who were in the Little Rock OK program. They're deputies here at the sheriff's office. So it's a good program, and that's why it's so important that you engage the kids where they are, and try to give them hope, give them a chance to do something else, see themselves doing something else. It's not just telling people what not to do. It's showing them what they can do, and then giving them the resources, the support, and sometimes the skill set with training, so that they can maybe go into a field that they may be interested in.
Why would you say that law enforcement should even be involved in that level of activity?
We are in this position I was going to say we're hired or elected. The taxpayers are paying for safety of our community. And if we are concerned about safety, we have to drill down and recognize how and why people get involved in criminal activity, and then how do you get them out of it. It's not just putting people in jail. We're going to do that. We're going to get dangerous people off the street. We're going to put people in jail. There's some people that need to go in jail for a long time. They're a danger to our community. But that's not everybody. And if all we're doing is arresting people and putting them in jail, that's all we are going to do. When you go back, and this is not something new what I'm talking about, Sir Robert Peel's Principles on Policing, I think it was like 1829, something like that. I don't remember exact year. But one of his principles he talks about in the policing, he talks about, how do you evaluate the effectiveness of a law enforcement agency? It's not by arrest. It's the absence of crime. No one feels safe in the community when all you show is a bunch of arrests. If everybody's being arrested, there's a bunch of homicides, there's a bunch of robberies going on, and we're arresting people, we're arresting the bad people and putting them in jail. That doesn't make a person feel safe. What makes a person feel safe is that they can go somewhere, be with their family or at an event, and not be a victim of crime. And so we have to prevent the crime. But then you look at, I need to provide for my family. Do I have an opportunity to do something illegal or legal to support my family? And people are caught in that situation. And if we can give them the resources, maybe they won't continue down that road. And a lot of times you look at Pulaski County in this area, in this state, there's a lot of areas that have a lot of resources. But we expect individuals to know where those resources are. And they may not know that. They don't know what opportunities they have. You may have a family that's struggling with food need, but only know the church down the street on Wednesdays provides food, and maybe not have any transportation to go anywhere else but to that church on Wednesday. Well, what about the rest of the week? How do they connect to those resources? And I think we have a lot of people in the community that want to help. They're concerned about safety, they're concerned about crime, they're concerned about the well-being of their neighbors. And I think if we can connect the resources and direct individuals to those resources, or bring those resources to those individuals and educate them and help them, I think we can have a significant impact on crime, because we're having an impact on a person's hope to succeed, to do something different.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. Join us next week for an in-depth look at a very unique model that is changing lives by combining district court and community resources in the same building. Only 2 episodes left in this season. Don't miss it.
Thanks to our guests, Sheriff Eric Higgins, Sheriff Phillip Miller, Chief Jamie Hammond, Colton Pace, and Donald Raney. And thanks to Arkansas Churches for Life for sponsoring. Musical credits include The Simple Truth by Dr. Delight, Tangles by Aaron Sprinkle, and Light the Way by Ian Pulaski. Music is licensed through Soundstripe.com. Smart Justice is a work of Restore Hope. Please consider helping us produce more work like this by becoming a sponsor at www.smartjustice.org. Thank you again.